All right, so I am gone today, and you guys are gonna need to walk through some of this mythology stuff. So I decided I would just walk you through it anyway. So my plan is to get us through the bigger portion of the Norse notes. So we're gonna wrap through all of the heroes and the gods together. This video should cover most of the god information, but then I have additional videos that will be posted. They cover some of the hero stories and all the other stuff you're gonna need for that quiz. So I'm using this little screen castify thing, so we'll just sort of walk through it, kind of see how it goes. So 1 second, let's see how that worked out. Everything disappeared for a second there. I have no idea. Let's go back to this then. All right, so we'll start with going over this Asir versus Vanir war if it breaks out. So one of the classes covered this, the other class didn't. So I'm just going to go over it for good measure for both of you guys. So remember, there are two basic tribes of the Norse gods. You have the Asir and you have the Vanir. Now, the Asir are technically the more warlike and powerful of these gods, and the Vanir supposedly are the more peaceful. But we already talked about how that is an incredibly relative term. So, and given that there's going to be a battle between these two, you would assume that the Vanir just get easily wiped out by the Asir, but that's just not how Norse mythology works, right? So the way this whole war gets started is actually really largely due to the Vanir causing the war. Okay, so there is an Asir warrior who goes to the Vanir and he's bragging about how much gold he has, right? Which really gets under their skin. But it's not just because he's being arrogant or whatever. Remember, they were all about survival. And if he has more money than them, then his chances of survival are higher, right? And so really what he's doing is saying, listen, I have a better chance of survival than you do, therefore I am better than you. Okay, that's what the entire story is about. Well, they hear this and they don't like anybody saying that their chances of survival are low. And so they decide to do the only logical thing, which is tormenting him through torture until they kill him, right? So the Asir hear about that, and they feel equally threatened because now that the Asir are killing, or the Vanir rather, are killing one of their men, they feel like their chances of survival are being threatened. So that's what this whole war is all about. One group being more capable of surviving than the other, right? And neither can stand that, and so they fight to prove whoever is the best or the strongest. Okay, that survival of the fittest mentality. Now, you would assume again that the Asir at this point would just come in, use their greater strength, and just wipe out the Vanir, because they have people like Odin and Thor, like these great famous war heroes. And frankly, the Vanir don't have the same level of warriors in their group. And so that would have made sense if it wasn't for one god on the Vanir side named Freyr. Okay, so Freyr is kind of like the god of life. Okay, he's a god of prosperity and rain and fertility, all these things that bring life. So he is literally the god of surviving, staying alive, thriving, right? So that's why he has such a prominent role in their mythology. Now, he's not a war god, though he is a great warrior, but he is an incredibly intelligent god. So he might not have that brute strength of Odin or Thor, but he's smarter than them. And so eventually, Odin and Thor just realize that they can't outsmart Freyr. And so at every turn, they might have the brute strength, but since Freyr has the intelligence, the Vanir just keep winning battle after battle after battle. It also helps that Freyr has this magical sword that he can like send out into battle and it will fight battles for him, and then he can just call it back and it's like, hey, thanks, buddy, and they go on their little journey together. So seeing that they have no chance of actually surviving this thing on their own, the Asir call together the Vanir and they propose a peace treaty, which is very like not Norse, all right? So when they call this peace treaty, they decide to symbolize that peace by spitting into a pot together, which sounds disgusting, but it just is what it is. But their spit's magical, so like they spit into this little pot, and all their magical spit like mixes together, and out of that pops this spit dude named Kavsir. Okay, so got the spit guy. I'll come back to him later. So after spit guy pops out, the Asir say, "Listen, we've got to solidify this peace somehow. So let's exchange some gods. Okay, so we'll give you our two wisest gods. You give us your two wisest gods, and we'll call it even. Okay, the idea here is they're less likely to attack one another if they have something invested in it in the other tribe personally, right? So it's same principle as when a warring nation would, like have a prince from one nation marry the princess from another nation, because now that those family ties are there, there's something bigger than the war that prevents them from going to combat. At least that's the idea. So the Vanir buy into it, right? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. That sounds like a great idea. So they trade over their two wisest guys, and their entire families come with them. Okay, so that's going to include Freyr, right? So they go over, and all these significant Vanir are now Asir. The Asir, however, don't play fair. Okay, they give up Cavsir, the spit guy. Okay, who was in his own right incredibly intelligent, but was he actually an Asir? Not really, right? He was just as much a seer as Vanir, plus he was made out of spit, and he's not going to be around forever, right? Eventually, he's going to die in these stories pretty early on. So they give up this guy they have nothing invested in, and then they give up an idiot, and they say, hey, you know what? Just repeat anything Cavsir says. They'll assume that you're really intelligent too, and we'll get him, right? So that's what they do, okay? Eventually, like I said, Cavsir dies, and so all the Vanir are left with is this fool, right? However, all the Asir have is everything. Okay, they have all the powerful warriors that they had before. They have all their great leaders, plus all of the Vanir leaders. And you would think at this point that the Vanir would like pick up on the trick, get really upset, and go to battle, but they don't. Okay, they actually respect what has happened, because the whole war was about who is better at surviving. And in that moment, the Asir proved it was them, right? And so rather than fight against the Asir, the Vanir just sort of become the Asir, right? They join forces. The few non-warring Vanir that sort of float around, who knows where, chilling until Ragnarok, where they later appear having survived in some tree or something. But for the most part, the Asir and the Vanir become one tribe at this point because of this peace treaty trick. Okay, so what I want to walk us through now are kind of the highlights of the Asir and the Vanir. I'm not going to cover a lot. Okay, so Vanir wise, there just aren't as many stories about them. So I'm going to give you like top 3 or 4 Vanir that you need to know, and then I'll walk you through the Asir, and I'll tell you some stories kind of as we move forward with that as well. Take a little drink here. It's ironic that I'm drinking tea in a coffee cup. Just throwing that out there. Merry Christmas. All right, so first, Njord is the guy I want to talk about. Okay, so Njord is kind of like, he sounds like a Norse Poseidon, right? So he's a god of seas and good fortune, very benevolent god, which is weird because you don't typically think of Norse gods as benevolent or anything like that at all. They're just usually like randomly slaughtering people, which is probably why we don't have a lot of stories about Njord. But he was the leader of the Vanir, and so when the trade happens, like he's one of the main gods gets traded over. But we don't have a lot of stories about him. What he's really famous for is that he is the dad of Freyr, the guy with the magical fighting sword, and his twin sister Freya. So they're kind of like the Apollo and Artemis of this mythology. Other than that, all we know is that during Ragnarok, he actually survives. He like joins those non-warring Vanir, and they hide in that tree that somehow is not destroyed by the destruction of all things, and he's good to go, right? But more significant, I guess this is what he looks like, kind of like a really buff, redheaded Santa Claus. More significant, though, is Freyr. Okay, this is the guy that we were talking about. Again, god of light, rain, fertility, prosperity. He is survival. That's what he is the god of. So just think of him in those terms. He is the god of staying alive, not the Bee Gees thing, but this guy. Okay, he's symbolized by a boar, which I also think is fantastic. He rides around on this giant golden-haired boar that can naturally like fly through the clouds, which is pretty incredible. He's married to originally his twin sister, which is disgusting, and we've come to expect it, but that's what it is. Okay. Apparently, I am approaching the end here, so I'm gonna pause on that front, and then we'll pick up with his story here in just a second. Maybe.